Da-da.
property of local farmers.
Get a second to make sure it's working. Says we're live. Hold potentially not now. Screw it. More inappropriate messages, the better. Alright, seems pretty simple. Let me get a name and shit going here. Tom and the White Endeavor. Where politics are black and white. And sometimes mixed. Huh? Pretty good?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. Alright. Completely public. Alright. There, I think we're getting to go. So. I'm assuming you can see my screen okay, right?
Yep, I can.
Alright. So, no sense in being completely formal about this because it's not like anyone's actually going to watch anyways. So. How exactly should we start this, Josh? What topic do you want to discuss tonight?
Well, okay, so we can start with ICE.
ICE. Okay. All right. I'm assuming you're talking about the Enforcement Agency for Immigration.
No, I'm joking. I'm talking about the Enforcement Agency.
Oh, good, because I thought we were going to talk about Vanilla Ice, the greatest white rapper of all time, minus every other white rapper to ever exist.
Really, the bar is set very low with Vanilla Ice. I'm sure he was actually.
Oh, come on! Eminem's like the greatest rapper of all time, let alone.
You're the Ice. I said the bar is set low with Vanilla Ice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I get you. But, yeah, okay, so, ICE. I'm assuming the children. Am I right?
Poor yeah.
Yep. The poor children of ICE. So that we have something more important on our screen than just our ugly-ass faces.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I keep on getting all these bullshits, so. A lot of China stuff. Oh, because those kids. No, I don't know why we're getting China stuff. That's kind of weird. But
well, I mean, all you have to do is like border enforcement and the border children, like any of that would work.
Okay, so let's talk about abolishing ICE. Okay.
Yes.
So we started this conversation on the phone the other day, where me being the lovely liberal I am, decided that it might just be a good idea to let police actually enforce immigration laws instead of ICE. See, when everyone says abolishing ICE, they don't have anything to add in its place. They just want to get rid of ICE, and they don't want to give any type of secondary thing, which just kind of mutes the argument, because obviously we're going to have border regulations, we're going to have rules, we're going to have laws, we're going to have to kick out illegal immigrants. I mean, there's just no way around that.
Hold on a second there, Haas. You being the lovely liberal that you say that you are, then you should know that there are people who are liberal leaders that are suggesting any border enforcement is unnecessary.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to lie. I believe that. I believe that we shouldn't have these types of policies that we do right now. I think they're way too strict. I think the future clearly shows that we're going to eventually have open borders policy, at least within the northern part of the United States, and probably with the southern part, northern part of America, and probably with South America too, at some point.
Well, slow down there. What policy in particular are you saying that should not exist?
Well, personally, I think we should mimic kind of what the EU has, where we take NAFTA and include open borders with such an agreement, But, again, that's far into the future. Let's try to stick to the issue at hand here, abolishing ICE. What does ICE serve that the police cannot serve?
Okay. You're right. We should stick with that specific issue.
Yeah.
So, just as a general description of ICE for those people who may not know, The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, is a law enforcement agency of the federal government of the United States under the jurisdiction of the Department of Homeland Security. ICE has two primary components: Homeland Security investigations and enforcement and removal operations.
Mm-hmm.
So in particular, you want the entirety of ICE. Is that correct?
I think ICE should go away. We give the power to the police. That simple.
So you are saying that we should give to the police the offices of Homeland Security investigation and enforcement and removal operations.
Yeah, I mean, why do we have a completely different department to perform the exact same task?
Because the requirements to become a police officer are separate.
Yeah, but so are the requirements to move up to a detective from a standard traffic patrol officer. Why can't these be taken care of internally instead of having two completely different departments with two completely different power sets?
Because one is a specialist.
Yeah, well, so again, so's a detective. Sure, a cop might stumble across a murder, but a detective's actually going to be the one who sits there and investigates it. Why can't the same thing work out in this situation? Why does there have to be two different, completely different departments?
Why would a detective be responsible for investigating a murder?
Well, because you got your regular traffic patrol guys who will call in a murder or whatever and be like, "Hey, here's the murder," and then like you always see in the movies, the detective comes down and he goes, "Oh, this is what happened. This is how it happened," and they CSI the fuck out of it, and 5 years from now get a thing.
What you're looking for is specialization.
Yeah, exactly. We have different subsections already in police departments. Why can't this be a thing? Why is it that we have two separate powers for the same job?
Because it's not the same job.
Well, they're both laws that are being broken. Why is it that we have a different department investigating these laws being broken? We have another department investigating laws that are being broken.
Because that department is designated with one specific task. It doesn't do the...
But with our current enforcement setup, police don't even have the power to deport anybody.
That's correct.
So it's not like the FBI where, you got like the FBI comes in and they'll do an investigation and police do an investigation. They both can charge people. But you cannot deport someone unless you're specifically an ICE agent.
FBI can't charge anybody.
All right, fair enough. I don't know. I didn't know that. Really?
The Federal Bureau of Investigation.
No, they just investigate shit. So who actually does the charging?
Well, the Federal Bureau lawyers will consult with the local district or the federal. So the federal courts, the federal attorneys. It's the arm of the. They will arrest. They will gather evidence and whatnot. It's over. Like, there will be lawyers that are, most of the FBI is lawyers, as I understand it.
Yeah.
But essentially, you will face the charges in your area. So there are federal courts, of course, and you'll be charged federally if you've broken a federal crime.
Yeah.
But you've seen movies where the FBI shows up and it's like, this is our jurisdiction now.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. What was your question?
Prisoner?
Yeah, I lost you for a second. Say that one more time.
What happens to the prisoner in the movies when the FBI shows up and they arrest the guy? What happens to the prisoner?
I don't know. They go to jail?
Yeah, in their state.
Oh, okay. I just figured that they went to like FBI jail or something and then went to federal prisons.
It's their federal prisons in states, but the FBI doesn't take them. Sometimes you have a branch FBI in the area, but in general, there's very few FBI police. The same ICE. ICE are specialists.
That makes
they
sense.
Don't do traffic stops. They don't do drug busts.
But they do traffic stops when it's related to enforcement.
In the enforcement of their jurisdiction, which
Correct.
is immigration. So they do single thing. They do two single things. They do the operations to remove, and then the operations for Homeland Security.
Yeah.
So if you're erasing ICE, then someone has to take up Homeland Security, and someone has to take up immigration. So you're saying that we should hire more police to do this.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And I believe, and it just, with the rules that ICE is given right now, like, when was ICE even created? Maybe I should look that up here. Before I get too much further here.
Of course, it was formed just a little bit after 9/11.
Yeah, March 1st, 2003. So we went 200 years in this country, 230 some odd, 20 some odd years, without any need for this government agency. Yet now we have it because of 9/11. That doesn't even make sense. Why are we concerned about illegals getting into this country? The 9/11 people didn't get in here illegally.
That is incorrect.
Did they?
You're saying we went so and so years without a need agency. This agency sort of existed without this title. What existed already. We've been deporting immigrants. We've been protecting the homeland or investigating homeland threats. This is something that has been happening through other jurisdictions. The problem was that there was a whole bunch of jurisdictional dick measuring that contributed to the 9/11. So basically, we're not sharing. You don't have to talk to you. Your jurisdiction, send me your warrant. You're stepping on the toes of my investigation. All that.
So
stuff.
The idea was to create one agency to have all the power, or basically where all these things are taken care of, instead of having every agency sitting there showing how big each other's dicks are.
One agency to specialize in one task.
Yeah, exactly.
So when it comes to the jurisdictional credence of, we got an immigrant chain of drugs, we got an immigrant human trafficking thing, we need to get.
So the hijackers were all legal citizens, foreigners, here on temporary visas or whatever, during the time that they did their flight school, at least according to this random article that I'm looking at here from some unknown website.
I can take it as fact. What's your point?
My point is, what do you think the failure was with our current system that allowed them into this country?
Well, supposedly there were reports that these individuals were not interested in landing planes.
Mm-hmm.
And the flight schools made reports about that. There were reports from outside of, I think the CIA. This is all like after the math conspiracy stuff, that the CIA or some member of the Federal Bureau had two pieces of information that, when connected, would point to Osama bin Laden planning a terrorist attack involving planes. Again, I don't know if this is actual fact, but basically, after investigations and many, many investigations, the conclusion was drawn that people were in that process. They made a whole bunch of different specializations. Well, I guess not a whole bunch, but under the wing of the Homeland Security, it got beefed up. And immigration is one area, one vector that terrorists have used in other countries. And in this country, actually, there are arrests, and most of them we stop because of our intelligence agency. But in other countries, there are terrorist attacks that happen mostly with immigrants. I'm not going to name the religion or any sort of religious inspiration.
Muslims.
But part of that issue is with the EU's open border policy. Well, I guess it's not necessarily open border, but their refugee acceptance policy, I suppose.
Yeah.
If you can't essentially, so you're familiar with the location that we live, not to be disclosed, but the location that we live, right?
Yeah. You mean you live specifically, but yeah.
Anyways, with our local experience, so as an example, let's just say we lived in, what's a good example? Utah, right? Utah has a burgeoning or a immigrant population, Hispanic immigrant population. It exploded in the 2000s, the early 2000s, an influx of immigration, illegal immigration. In many places in the United States, the immigrant population surpassed the native relatively native, Black American population and Black immigrant population in a matter of decade, and under a decade. It in some places where they're predominantly white and just a fraction of the population is Black, the Mexican population surpassed them. At least in most being illegal. Now, what did we do in response?
Created ICE.
ICE is essentially in response to the illegal activities that involve illegal immigrants. So ICE isn't necessarily hunting all illegal immigrants because it hasn't been given the purview in previous administrations, but it has always been under the purview of ICE to do that. Right. The previous administrations took kid gloves to that particular aspect and focused on Muslim terrorism or other credible immigrant threats, like some militant Christian, I believe, Somalis that have been like pirating or something. I can't remember. Or no, Haitians, I think. There have been Haitian immigrant sex trafficking, and they're on top of that too. But the idea is that you are only seeing something that has been a component of this organization for as long as it's created. Previously, Barack Obama demanded that ICE be enforced. Do you remember Sheriff Arpaio?
Yes, I remember Sheriff Arpaio. The guy who literally broke the law multiple times and then straight up got a pardon from the current President Trump.
Well, your role, buddy. What laws did he break?
He broke the civil rights of many Hispanic people that were not immigrants. He literally held them for multiple days at times.
Right. Okay. So if all that's true, do you remember he was charged with a crime? What crime was that?
Violating. I think it was violating 14th Amendment rights.
Yeah, look that up. Find out what that is. So you said did multiple.
Here. I'll look up what Sheriff Arpaio was actually charged with. That way I know.
Multiple human rights. You said he performed multiple human rights violations. So it stands to reason that the thing that he did must be relatively serious. I mean, if there's evidence to support that. So let's see what happened. What did they charge him with?
Arpaio, the Arizona lawman who once proclaimed himself America's toughest sheriff, was largely praised by conservatives for his hard-lining policing tactics. I'm betting you, yep, LA Times. It says a liberal slant, so I apologize. Was found guilty Monday of criminal contempt, bringing his tenure as a relentless crusader against illegal immigration to an end. More than a month after lawyers wrapped up closing arguments, the U.S. District Judge Susan Bolton found Arpaio guilty for defying a judge's 2011 court order to refrain from racially profiling Latinos during patrols and turning them over to federal immigration authorities. The 85-year-old is scheduled blah, blah, blah. During the trial, which took place in federal court in Phoenix, prosecutors argued that Arpaio intentionally violated the court order which demanded his officers stop detaining people simply on the suspicion that they were in the country illegally, a practice that had led to the detention of some Latinos who were citizens or legal residents. Prosecutors used Arpaio's own words against him, pointing to several media appearances throughout the years, including a Univision interview in 2012 in which he admitted that he was still targeting people based on immigration status. Now, the quote here is, if they don't like what I'm doing, he said, addressing his opponents, get the laws changed in Washington.
Yeah, which is an accurate statement. Because the law to do it.
He doesn't have the authority right now to do it. So
no, first of all, we're not talking about right now.
Yeah.
What you said was what he was charged with. Now, what did he...
He was ultimately charged with contempt of court for not following a court order to quit profiling Hispanic people.
And do you know how they convicted him?
Well, I mean, go ahead and explain to me what you're trying to say here.
And on the application to become a member of the sheriff's department, it says it asks for your nationality, and one of the options is Mexican or Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's profiling. That's how they was proven to be still profiling.
Oh, really? That's interesting. But yeah, I mean, if it is, it is. It's just that
He
simple.
He didn't. He just uses it for people who want to apply to the office. So all these human rights violations and
Whoa,
ultimately,
hold on. So what you're saying is just a straight up questioning was all that he was charged with? Because I don't recall that being the case. I recall him pulling over people just for the way that they looked.
yes, which is what you would do if you're trying to catch immigrants. By the way, they have one of the highest ratios of immigrants in Texas.
Yeah,
Texas is up most because they share a border, but next is New Mexico.
Yes.
New Mexico, right? Or is it Arizona?
Yes, but again, he wasn't allowed to pull over people based on the color of their skin or the way that they looked, in this example.
Catch immigrant.
That's not legal.
Person is an immigrant. Tell me a better way.
Tell you what a better way.
Illegal immigrants. What's a better way?
What do you mean, what's a better way? Oh, to get them? As I said, or I guess I haven't said this at all today, but I think it should be based, like, your immigration status should only be discovered during the process of trying to find a crime. So, during any kind of investigation. I don't think, like if you were pulled over and you couldn't produce a driver's license, then if during the investigation to find out whether you have a driver's license or not, they discover you're not an American citizen, perfectly fine.
Why were they pulled over?
What?
Why were they pulled over?
Let's say for speeding.
Okay. So their crime is speeding.
Yes, so let's say their original crime was speeding, and then they discover you don't got a license, and then, yeah, that would be a time when it should come up whether your immigration status is legal or not. Or if you get charged with rape or something, then that question should come up then. It shouldn't come up because you're sitting outside of Lowe's trying to get a job.
Except for the part where illegal immigrants, go outside of Lowe's to get jobs. What about that?
What? It shouldn't make any difference. Anybody can go outside of Lowe's. Sitting outside of Lowe's trying to get a job is not illegal.
Oh, you cut out on me.
Okay, let me say that again. Sitting outside of Lowe's trying to get a job is not illegal.
No, it's not. But being an illegal immigrant outside of Lowe's trying to get a job is illegal.
But how do they know that without having an investigation beforehand?
You go up and ask.
You should have no right to go up and ask.
Why? They're American
citizens. The second
citizens.
they go up and ask if American citizen, whether they have a license or not, that's breaking American citizens' amendments.
It's not.
Yes, it is. You do not have... If you are breaking no law in this country, you have no requirement to show any police officer any proof of identity.
You're mixing the terms. It's not a matter of must show them proof of identity. There's suspicion, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then investigation. If the police officer has suspicion, you are obligated to prove what they are suspicious of. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But
okay.
There shouldn't be a way to discover suspicion. Just because you can't speak English should not be a considerable enough suspicion for you to be taken out.
You've added another component, okay?
Yep.
So we're talking about a person who doesn't have any identification, who's standing in front of Lowe's, and who's an illegal immigrant. Yep. You're saying that the officer can't approach them and ask them for identification.
There should be no reason unless they are breaking the law. Now, if they were loitering, because that's considered loitering in that city, that's a different situation.
The reason is that they are a Mexican standing in front of Lowe's, and or illegal immigrants stand in front of Lowe's to get jobs. We've already established that this is something that happens. It's a commonly known thing.
Yes, but you gotta play dumb as a police officer in these situations. Because that one time that you're wrong, you're breaking the Constitution.
No, it's not a matter of being wrong one time. That's not how it works. It's reasonable suspicion. If everyone knows this is something that happens, if this is something that you can prove happens, if you actually have previously caught, 10 people, and you've tried 10 times, and each of the 10 times previous to this attempt that has resulted in fruit, then it is reasonable to assume that if all the same conditions occur, that this is a likely outcome. And that's all that is required, is suspicion and a likely outcome.
And
And
what
again,
about the one time that it doesn't work? What about the one time that you just got some poor Billy Bob Joe sitting out there trying to get some work for the day, so he decides to do everything all the illegal immigrants are doing, and now the police are coming up and harassing him? The police have no right to harass him in any other situation.
what you determine to be harassment?
A police officer coming up and having a conversation with me when I am doing absolutely nothing illegal.
I say, oh, okay, so a police officer having a conversation with you is harassment.
Yes.
Okay, and may I ask why?
Because let me rephrase this. A police officer coming up and having a conversation with me and trying to determine whether I'm committing a crime should be illegal.
What is the job of a police officer?
To investigate crimes and take people to jail and stuff like that.
Would having a conversation be an active investigation?
It shouldn't be an active investigation in any situation. No, if you're coming up and just there should only be an active investigation if there is a reasonable expectation that there is a crime being committed there.
Not active, an act of investigation,
yes.
Like to act in a way that produces basically results for an investigation.
Yeah, correct.
What I'm saying is, what you're saying is that a police officer attempting to discover whether or not you are committing a crime should be illegal, even though their task is to find people who are committing crimes.
No, okay. You really skewed what I was saying there, man. All right, let's take it this way, okay? You have a drug addict, okay?
Yep.
All right. Let's say, drug addicts, they go to, the local church rehab type deal, okay? If police sat outside waiting for all the drug addicts to come in there, and they decide to, pick them up right before they get into the rehab building, there's no way that's ever going to hold up in court. They just pick them up because of suspicion of them being a drug addict because they're walking to a rehab building.
I agree.
Now, why is it that that's okay, but sitting outside of Lowe's and, not expecting to get harassed by the police isn't?
Who said that was okay?
What?
That would be unreasonable.
That would be unreasonable, that's right. And it'd be unreasonable if police were harassing people sitting over by Lowe's looking for a job, whether they're illegal immigrants or legal immigrants.
Hold on. In the example that you provided, okay, the idea is that these people are recovering from the addiction of using drugs, right? Is that correct?
Say that one more time.
They're recovering from the addiction of using drugs. They're trying to prevent themselves from continuing using drugs.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So they were doing a criminal activity, attempting to no longer do a criminal activity, right?
All right.
So if they were to be evaluated or whatever, that would be unreasonable because there is no other sign that they would be a part of a criminal activity except for their past. So there's no evidence other than they were previously using drugs. That's not enough. Now, in the example of an illegal Mexican in front of a Lowe's looking for work, their presence in front of the Lowe's in the United States is already a criminal act. Their simple existence in an inappropriate area is already the crime. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So already, once you verify that they do not belong in the United States, that search was justified. Mm-hmm. And if you come across an individual who, for whatever reason, can't provide identification and is an American citizen, then that is something that is going to happen because there is an influx of illegal immigrants. Do you think there's a lot of individuals who are essentially like, I don't know, there's a lot of...
Like came over here and were like, fuck this. What was I thinking? I want to go back.
Yeah, essentially what I'm asking is like, do you ever consider why there isn't a lot of unreasonable searches for Japanese people?
Because there isn't that many Japanese people that come in here illegally.
There isn't that many illegal here.
No, there's definitely a higher, Hispanic population coming here illegally than most other countries.
Why are you blaming the people who are trying to enforce the laws and not the people who are coming over here illegally for bothering American citizens?
Look, that's like saying, why would I blame the guy who has pot in his car because the cop decided to legally search his car?
That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, okay, so, like the same thing applies throughout our whole entire legal system. I mean, it's an unreasonable search. It's an unreasonable investigation at that point. I mean,
You're reasonable, but the reason is based off of the crime, okay? If a person's presence is unacceptable, legally speaking, looking for that person is what the police are trying to do. If presence is the crime, they must search for presence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we say unreasonable search, it's based off of what crime they're trying to investigate. If they're trying to investigate if a person is here legally, the least they can do is start a conversation with them. The most they can do is arrest them. Do you agree?
Look, I gotta say, it's unreasonable to investigate at that point. Hey, let's take a second here to stop, and take a little break for a second. There's some problems with the stream here I need to figure out real quick.
Okay.
So, give me a second here.